The next thing we need to do is create a reusable player-specific page using wildcards. So the company info page contains information both shared by everyone, as well as information and decisions that are company specific. So you remember, cumulative profit, I can only see for myself, but indicated market share is something that's shared. We're going to use wildcards to take care of the player specific information. So what you're going to learn here is all about wildcards, making sliders, and using ready to advance button actions to control the flow of simulation games. So let's go back to Architect. So let's go to our company information page, and we need to create that indicated market share pie chart. The easiest way for me to do that is going to be to place a new chart down. I was thinking about copying and pasting the other. So I'm going to place a new chart down, and I'm going to make it a pie chart. And what I'm going to do is plot on it the indicated market share for all of the companies. And just like we did in the other chart, I'm going to remake the legend as Google, Amazon, and then Apple. The reason why I didn't copy and paste the other chart was because it was easier for me to type Google, Amazon, and Apple rather than to retype the name of the variable. And so like we did on the other chart, we're going to enter in a title as market share. Very good. So the next thing we need to do is make our cumulative profit graph. We'll do that using the same graph tool, and we'll place that on the corner here. We'll enter in a title for this graph as cumulative profit, and we'll go to the series settings to set up our series. So the series we want in this graph is cumulative profit, but we don't want cumulative profit for all three companies, and we don't want cumulative profit for Google or Amazon or Apple. We want cumulative profit for question mark being the wild card that represents the appropriate company. The appropriate company in this place is going to be based on the role that our player has in our multiplayer game. The role is going to either be Google, Amazon, or Apple. In this case, the question mark will be replaced automatically by the simulation engine to represent the company that we are actually playing as. So now that we've set that up, in Architect, by default, it's going to show you, for question mark, the first array element in the array dimension. What I want to do now is remove the legend from this graph, since it's duplicate information, and leave the chart as such. It'll also be nice to change that left axis title from $ to USD, so it isn't so confusing with the $ labels. So now we've created our cumulative profit chart. The final things we need to make on this page are the sliders, which allow us to control price and subscription price. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a slider widget and place it down on the page. And I'm going to set up my slider to control the variable called price. And the variable that I want to control in this case isn't price for a specific company, but rather the price of the company that I am playing as. Therefore, I'm going to use a wildcard. So wildcards are usable both on input and output devices. Anywhere where a variable can be specified, a wildcard can be specified as well. Whenever we use sliders, we want to make sure that we enter in the range of values that we're going to be using, because the default 0 to 100 is not necessarily what we're looking for. So the minimum price is going to be $5, and the maximum is going to be 50, and we're going to do that in increments of 50 cents. We then want to arrange the slider so it looks as it did in the interface that we played in the beginning of this simulation, which we're going to do by changing the title side to left and making the slider much longer. Because this slider is set up in such a way that the slider expands to fit the box, as I increase the size of the box, the size of the slider changes with it. Let's finally adjust the title of this slider to just say price. Now that we've done that, let's copy this slider and paste it again and set up our slider for the subscription price. So using the green plus, we'll change the variable to subscription price for question mark, the wild card, the company that we're playing as. And we're going to change the range from $0 to $15 in increments of 50 cents. We then need to change the label to say subscription price. But you'll see now that we have a problem in that one of our sliders is shorter than the other slider. When building interfaces, it's good if you can control things such that everything aligns to a grid. So we're going to do that by unchecking slider expands to fit and entering in a fixed width for the slider of, let's call it 350 pixels. We'll do the same thing to our other slider, which will ensure then that the two sliders themselves line up in physical space. We'll then increase the number of labels to 5 to increase the density of the labels in both of the two plots. Now we have a pretty good looking set of sliders. The final thing we need to do on this page is make a button to move this game forward in time. We need a way of supplying the users with an action that says they are ready to move forward in time. We're going to do that using the button action, the button tool. And on the button, we're going to add a series of actions. In this case, the action that we're looking for is all the way at the bottom, which is ready to advance. Buttons are capable of doing multiple things. In this case, we want to just do the action called ready to advance. Ready to advance moves the model forward in a specified increment when all players in a multiplayer simulation agree that they are ready to move forward. This is a form of consensus-based time advancement. Other time advancement techniques in multiplayer games include a single user who has control over time and can move it on their own using an action such as run or advance time in ballistic mode. But in this case, that's not what we're looking for. Other ways of moving time forward in multiplayer games include timers and other such devices, which we aren't going to talk about right now. So now that we've set up our button, let's finish it and style it appropriately. The way I like to make my action buttons in Architect is with a flat background and a background color that represents the kind of action that's going to be taken. I like using green for things that push things forward in time, blue for information, and yellow for warnings. That's why I've saved as my custom colors green, blue, and yellow. So I'm going to use green here. I'm then going to change the font to be size 14 to match all of our other font settings. And I'm going to change the button from having black text to white text. And finally, I'm going to make it bold. We've now created a flat material design style button, which I find as something a lot more easily noticed and followed by users of our simulation.